Leveling up. Extreme business growth through raising your game. When what was once extraordinary becomes ordinary, you know you've leveled up.
Hello and welcome to the Leveling Up Podcast with me, George Swift. The Leveling Up Podcast is here to give you the personal development, the entrepreneurial development and the business growth that you, the ambitious business owner, desires. I'm here to give you the inspiration, the motivation and to challenge your aspirations to take you and your business to the next level. Subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. In today's episode, it is Christmas Day. If you're listening to me on Christmas Day, I'm hoping you have an amazing Christmas Day this year. If you're listening to me after Christmas Day, because let's be honest, you were with your family and loved ones and maybe my podcast wasn't at the top of your Christmas list, then I hope you had an awesome Christmas and I hope you're starting to gear up for an amazing new year. Today's episode, it's Bar Humbug. It's our time for reflection. Scrooge and the Christmas Carol gave us an awesome metaphor for life. It's a metaphor of looking at where we are today in our current standings, looking at our current position and looking at what we've created in our life and looking at what's working and what isn't working and understanding that we can create change in the future. However, to create that change, we need to change. In A Christmas Carol, Scrooge went through an epiphany. It was a painful epiphany for sure. He was shown his wrongdoings. He was shown the life that he had created. He was also shown, by the way, that even though that he is mean today and he was creating meanness around him and having a negative impact on the people around him in his life and even the community around him, and he's being tight and he was being a miser, actually also showed him that it wasn't necessarily his fault. That when you went back to his early days and, being raised in an orphanage and you realized that, he could have been anything. He could have been molded into any kind of person and any kind of character. And, genetics aside, the environment that he was raised in, to some extent, manipulated him into being this gnarly, twisted, wicked human being, this miser, this person that was taking from people but giving nothing, if anything, back. Taking so much but giving back so little. And his circumstances and his environment, shaped him into this twisted, warped personality that he became. And what it showed us was that no matter what had gone in our past, there was a purity within us. No matter what had happened to us, who we were today wasn't necessarily who we could have been. And more importantly, the tale shows us that we can create change, that we can become who we need to become, who we want to become in order to have the quality of life that we want to have. Now, Scrooge also gets misinterpreted very often as the idea that somehow money corrupts, that somehow that, money can't buy you happiness and that financial rewards and success don't mean anything. Now, the truth of the matter is, if we had to choose between happiness and money, if we had to choose between health and money, amazing relationships and loving relationships and friendships than money, then I'm sure that most of us would and probably should choose that over financial success and the big house and everything else. However, we don't have to make that choice. As I said on Monday, we don't have to make that choice to be mean and wicked and twisted and to be a miser and to take and not give in order to be financially successful. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to it. It's episode 76. What I want you to think about now is the lessons that Scrooge gives us, the lessons that Charles Dickens gave us, which is that we can go back and we can see the pureness that we had, the purity that we had. We can also go back and see, it takes some bravery, but we can go back and see how maybe some of that pureness and some of that goodliness that was within us maybe got a little bit corrupted along the way. This isn't saying that you're Scrooge or you're mean. What I'm saying here is to dare to look into ourselves, to look into our own souls and see where we are less than we could be, that we're behaving in ways that maybe isn't congruent with who we truly believe we are or truly wish we were. I want you to look at, some of the behaviors and, some of the actions that we take today and that we have today. And I want you to be really honest with yourself and, like Scrooge, dare to stare in that mirror and dare to not pick fault, but to be completely honest and authentic with yourself, to be brave enough to stand naked in front of that mirror of life and to dare to see the imperfections, the flaws. And it's not about hating on them. It's not about rejecting them. It's about understanding that we all have these flaws within us, that we all have these imperfections within us. We all have these moments when we behave less than we would choose to behave or less than we could behave. Does this make sense? That we all let ourselves down sometimes. And every time we behave like that, it has an impact in the world around us. It has an impact to the people around us, has an impact to the world at large. In business, it has an impact to our business success, but also in our own hearts and our own souls, it has a negative impact to us. Just like Scrooge, it chips away a little bit of that goodliness. It chips away a little bit of that pureness that we were born with. And I'm not saying any of us are going to end up in the terrible situation that Scrooge found himself in. However, we all have to acknowledge that we could be better, that we could do better, that we could have a more positive impact in our lives, the lives of those people around us that we love the most, and even the world at large around us. None more so has this power than the entrepreneur. Our businesses sit in our communities. The small business entrepreneur I'm talking about here, our businesses sit inside our communities. They have an impact. You might only have 10 clients, 20 clients, maybe 100 clients, but you're having this amazing impact on other people's lives. It might not be that you do anything deep and meaningful. I always say, if you make those little Christmas cards that when you open them up, they do a fart noise, right? I wouldn't say that was deep and meaningful, but if you derive pleasure from that and you enjoy the idea that every person that buys that card, it's going to give them, or a child or a kid, or maybe an older kid, a moment of fun, a moment of levity, a moment of laughing. And if that means something to you, then you're doing something of purpose. You're doing something that matters. It doesn't have to be deep and meaningful in order to be meaningful. I want you to think as an entrepreneur that we have an opportunity to create an unbelievable life for ourselves and to have this amazing impact in the world around us, whether it's just localized in our communities or whether it's, at a national level or even at an international global level. We have an unprecedented opportunity to impact the world with ourselves, with who we are. Who we are goes through our products, it goes through our services, and it impacts and it penetrates the world around us. And that world is changed and altered because of our being here. And if we don't continually improve ourselves, if we don't continually want to act at our highest levels of integrity, to behave and act and interact as positively as we can, then we are absolutely missing out on a fundamental opportunity that we have as entrepreneurs and business owners to have this impact in the world around us. So we love A Christmas Tale. We love A Christmas Carol. We love Scrooge. We even love to hate Scrooge. And we watch it, and we watch it every year potentially, and the story washes over us, and maybe the wrong lessons stick. There's no point chasing money. There's no point, having all this wealth and everything else because it makes you unhappy. No, it wasn't Scrooge's money that made him unhappy. It wasn't, Scrooge's big mansion that made him feel lonely. What made Scrooge feel lonely, sad, and miserable was the fact that he wasn't positively impacting the world around him. And therefore, he didn't have the people around him to bring him the joy and the love and the happiness that he could have had. And even if he did have the odd person, he had his nephew, for example, who did love him and did try so hard to be connected to him and to bring joy and happiness into his uncle's life, he wasn't able to allow that in, and he kept him out at arm's distance. I want you to learn the real lessons that Charles Dickens gave us in The Christmas Carol. The idea that if we go back to our Christmas past and we look right back to our early childhood and our early beginnings, we were all pure, full of potential, full of opportunity. Then circumstances happened, situations happened, our environments molded us and shaped us into who we are today. And much of who we are today, much of who you are today is incredible. It's positive, and it's having a positive impact on the world and the people around you. However, some of those lessons that we had in early life, some of the environments that we grew up in, whether it's our parents, our teachers, our friendships, maybe we got into the wrong crowd, maybe we were less fortunate in our upbringing and, the lessons that we received back then. And therefore, some of that actually created a version of ourselves that is less than it could be. And this is fundamentally at the heart of personal development. It's not about looking at yourself and just seeing the flaws. It's not looking at yourself and hating yourself. It's not looking at yourself and blaming yourself for everything, in your life and around you and in the world around you. Personal development is daring to stand naked in front of that mirror, daring to look at your past, to see the potential that you had, to see the gaps in that potential as they are today, the flaws, the imperfections that are holding you back and stopping you from being the person that you could have been. And then it's about looking forward to Christmas future. It's looking into the future and saying, who do I want to be? How do I want to be? What do I want to create? What do I want to have in life? What impact do I want to have on the world? What's my legacy going to be? How do I want to feel in the future? How do I want other people around me to feel in the future? And it's understanding that you can create change. You don't need to have the life-altering epiphany that Scrooge has, although often many people sometimes do have that moment that creates change in their life, the crisis, the catastrophes, the sudden start look at themselves and seeing everything in themselves that they don't like and they don't necessarily love about themselves. It doesn't have to be like that. We can be engaged in an ongoing journey of personal development. It's about loving yourself. It's about loving the imperfections and the flaws. It's not about disregarding those things or hating on yourself for those things, but it's about understanding that you can create who you want to be out of the raw material that you are right now. That you don't have to have some of these, limiting attitudes or mindsets, that some of these behaviors you have, whether it's, procrastination or indecisiveness or fear or doubt. Maybe there's a little string of meanness that's come in. Maybe there's a little bit of selfishness that's there that, it just rubbed off, that you took it on. I don't know. And you look at it and you're like, I don't really like that part of myself. If I was daring to look inside myself, some of this stuff, I wouldn't want to see in myself. And many of us, we hide from it. And this is why I say personal development is not for the weak. It's not for the broken. Personal development is actually for the strong and the courageous, the brave, people who are willing to go on that journey inside themselves and to dare to see the truth within them, to see the positive and the great things within them, but also to accept and understand and acknowledge some of those weaknesses and those flaws within them that are being broadcast out into the world around them, and creating a world, a life that I hope they love, but ultimately they acknowledge and they're willing to accept could be so much better. This is not about being unhappy with who you are today. This is not about being unhappy with life as it is today. In fact, my definition of happiness, my definition of fulfillment is loving everything about yourself today, loving everything about your life today, loving everything about your business today, whilst also being super excited about what is coming in the future, being so excited about the possibility of what is still to come. In The Christmas Carol, Scrooge got a rude awakening to significantly alter his personality and significantly alter his behaviors to such a dramatic degree that he literally took his life on a 180, that he did a complete turnaround and went from being, the meanest, most cold-hearted person in town to being the most generous and warm-hearted in town. He needed that shock. He needed that rude awakening in the middle of the night from the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. I don't want you to need that kind of impact in your life to wake you up, to shake you up, to get you to realize that you are better than you're currently being, that you can have more than you currently have, and that you can be such a positive force for good in your own life, in the lives of those people around you, and the world at large around you, if you continually strive to improve the areas of yourself that are holding you back, whilst maximizing all those amazing characteristics and all those amazing traits that you have that are creating a great positive impact in your life and the world around you. It's about maximizing the best of everything that you are, whilst removing, reducing, and replacing the worst of what you are. And none of us are perfect. None of us are all good. None of us are in a place where we can sit here and say, you know what, George? I am in a great place. I am great. Life is great. And everything I'm doing is great. If that is you, I'm telling you now, you are twice as fucked as the rest of us. The rest of us that wake up and see our imperfections, see our flaws. And maybe many of us don't know what to do with those imperfections and flaws. So what we do is we turn them inside on ourselves and we feel bad about ourselves. It lowers our self-esteem. It lowers our confidence and our self-confidence. It has a negative impact on our self-worth. And then we start to hide it from ourselves. We hide us from the world, and we don't put ourselves out there as fully as we could do, as fully as we should do, in order to have the impact that every single one of us as human beings, but especially as entrepreneurs, can have in this world. So this podcast episode is all about that. It's daring on this Christmas day to look at yourself, be your own ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. Look at the positivity that you were born with. Look at the opportunity that you were born into, regardless of how quickly that may have been taken away from you. It might have been the moment you were born into an environment that some of that potential was already kind of, chiseled away. That maybe some of that opportunity that you had at the moment of your conception, maybe it was starting to be eroded like instantly because of circumstances that you were born into. Maybe for some of you, it's later in life. Maybe for some of you, it's more recent than that. Maybe it's just, your recent history that's had a negative impact on you and it's holding you back from being who you could be. But understanding when we look back to our origins, we were born into pure opportunity. Things happened. We took on some negative lessons. We learned some negative traits. We learned some awesome stuff as well. And then when we look at our Christmas present, this is who we are today. This is what we're creating today. This is what we are able to achieve today, given who we are today. And then it's going into the future and daring to dream big, daring to see the life you want to create for yourself, the environment you want to create for your family, the world you want to create around you, and then aligning yourself with that. Understanding that you're going to have to go on what I call, the two journeys. It's the two paths of success. It's the outer path of doing what you need to do in order to create success, taking actions, applying the strategies and applying the tactics that create success. I talk a lot about that in the last episode. But it's also about going on the inner journey, the internal journey of personal development, of self-discovery, of self-improvement. And when you align the internal journey of self-betterment with the external journey of success that you're trying to create, something very powerful happens. In fact, if you go on the external journey without undertaking the internal journey, then you're only going to get so far on the external path. You need to go on the internal journey, the internal path of personal development. Stare naked at yourself in the mirror and dare to see the flaws and the gaps in your game. Dare to see the imperfections that are holding you back, that are causing you to behave in ways that are less than you would want for yourself, less than you could be, and therefore having a negative, detrimental impact on the life that you could be creating for yourself and everybody else around you. And then going on that journey of improving it, and then setting goals around that improvement. Daring to make 2020 the year where you step up, the year where you step up, not just to business, but you step up to yourself. You step up for yourself. You step up for everybody and everything around you to be the best version of yourself. To maximize the best of what you've got, to minimize, to limit, reduce and replace the areas of your personality, the areas of your thinking, your emotional state, the areas of your behaviors, maybe even the tactics that you're applying in business or in life, and make them the best you possibly can in order to create the best you possibly can. I truly hope that you are having an awesome Christmas time. If you're listening to this on Christmas Day, I hope it's everything you want it to be. If you already had Christmas and you listen to this post-Christmas, I hope it was everything you wanted it to be. If not, just project to next year, to Christmas future, and ask yourself, what do I want to have there? Who do I want to be there? Who do I want to have around me? How do I want us to feel? How do I want us to be? Where am I living? What am I doing? What does my bank balance look like? What does my health look like? My body look like? How do I feel in my life? What impact am I having on myself and those people around me? And then set your goals in 2020 to align with that. Become the person that gets to be that and therefore gets to achieve that. I look forward to seeing you on the next one where, let's be honest, we're going to be ramping up to the new year. 2020 sounds like the stuff of science fiction novels to me. However, I look at my calendar and I know it's true. 2020, the stuff of future. Make it the best you possibly can. I'm going to be taking you through some special podcasts as we go through this transition of 2019 into 2020. Join me throughout 2020 on the Leveling Up podcast. Continue to level yourself up. Continue to level your business up. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, as always, be merry and be successful.
Leveling up. Extreme business growth through raising your game. When what was once extraordinary becomes ordinary, you know you've leveled up.